Justin Trudeau, a name that polarizes, inspires, and infuriates. His name ignites debate all across Canada. Depending on who you ask, Trudeau has boundless power and is responsible for all that ails us, or is a puppet controlled by political and institutional forces. But how much power does the Prime Minister of Canada really have? And what, if anything, keeps that power in check? Our country, our world, is changing at an accelerating pace, faster and faster. It may feel disconnected, like hurtling through a maelstrom, but when you peel back the layers, unpack the pieces, you start to see the Canadian connections. To many, Trudeau is the face of every major decision made in Canada. From carbon taxes to pandemic policies, housing strategies to international trade, he is seen as the authority. It's no surprise then that critics, on the left and the right, argue that Trudeau can do anything and is responsible for everything. But perception rarely aligns with reality. The truth about Trudeau, or any Canadian Prime Minister's power, is much more nuanced. While the Prime Minister wields significant influence, their rule is anything but absolute. To understand why, we need to explore the structures and the people that both empower and constrain a Canadian Prime Minister. First, there's the federal system. Canada is a country of provinces and territories, each with its own government. While Trudeau's federal government sets the tone on national issues like climate change, immigration, and health funding, the provinces control critical areas like healthcare delivery, education, and natural resources. Think about Alberta's battles over oil pipelines, or Quebec's insistence on maintaining its cultural identity. These aren't just political squabbles, they're constitutional limits on federal power. Trudeau may want to implement sweeping reforms, but the provincial premiers often hold the cards. Case in point, the carbon tax. Love it or hate it, the Supreme Court upheld it, but only after provincial governments fiercely contested it. And then there's Parliament. While Trudeau is the leader of the Liberal Party, he still faces daily scrutiny from the opposition parties. Question period is a spectacle of accountability, where opposition MPs challenge him on everything from spending to scandals. It's messy, chaotic, and entirely necessary. Beyond this, parliamentary committees dig even deeper. Remember the We Charity controversy? It wasn't the public or the press that forced Trudeau to answer tough questions. It was parliamentary committees investigating government contracts. Parliament also appoints independent watchdogs that answer to Parliament, not the Prime Minister or his office. Canada's Auditor General goes through the government's budget and spending with a fine-tooth comb. The Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner has produced a few embarrassing rulings for the government of the day. And there is the Privacy Commissioner, the Commissioner of Lobbying, the Commissioner of Elections, and, well, you get the idea. Further removed from the political considerations of the Prime Minister is the Governor of the Bank of Canada, who has the not insignificant role of setting interest rates that affect everything from mortgages to rent to food costs, something a lot of us have been squawking about. The Governor is appointed by the bank's Board of Directors, with the approval of the Governor in Council, which is effectively the Cabinet and the Prime Minister, for a 7-year period, and is very hard to remove before then. That independence is important if you want monetary policy based on sound economic principles rather than short-term political considerations. At the same time, the Senate acts as the chamber of sober second thought, reviewing legislation and actually editing up to 30% of it, occasionally sending it back to the House for further consideration, while a completely independent judiciary ensures policies comply with the Constitution and the Charter of Rights. Even the best laid plans can hit these institutional roadblocks. Here's a secret about Canadian politics. Being the leader of a party doesn't mean absolute control over its elected members. At the moment, Trudeau's Liberal Caucus is made up of 153 MPs elected in ridings across the country, each with their own constituencies and priorities. If Liberal MPs feel that Trudeau's policies will harm their re-election chances, they'll push back. Caucus revolts are rare, but they happen. And if a Prime Minister loses their caucus's support, their political future becomes precarious. Just ask Joe Clark or John Turner. The Prime Minister must inspire, or at least manage, his 38 cabinet ministers with all their egos and personal agenda. Those ministers manage their respective ministries through deputy ministers, who are the top bureaucrat in their ministry. Now let's talk about the often invisible yet enormous machinery of the federal government, the bureaucracy. This sprawling network of 368,000 public servants carries out the day-to-day work of governing Canada. On paper, the Prime Minister heads the federal government, but in practice, motivating and controlling the bureaucracy is like steering a massive ship. Policies announced in Ottawa need to be translated into action by thousands of civil servants across the country. Think about it. A single initiative like the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit during the pandemic required coordination between multiple departments: Employment and Social Development Canada, the Canadian Revenue Agency, and provincial governments. It worked, but not without glitches, delays, and plenty of improvisation. Even more challenging is driving cultural or structural change. There are roughly 130 departments and other organizations that make up the federal government, and most have ridiculously complicated org charts. The career bureaucrats will outlast the government of the day, and bureaucracies are naturally resistant to rapid shifts. Public servants follow established protocols and laws, which can slow down even the boldest prime ministerial vision. Trudeau, or any prime minister, must navigate this complex network of personalities, mandates, unions, and institutional inertia. And then there's the political machinery and external checks. Trudeau's role as Liberal leader ties him to party strategists, grassroots members, and donors. A leader who strays too far risks alienating the party base. Finally, there's the court of public opinion. Trudeau is under constant scrutiny from the media, advocacy groups, and Canadians themselves. In today's social media age, every decision is analyzed in real time. Scandals, policy failures, or even a poorly timed photo can derail an agenda. So, can Justin Trudeau do anything he wants? The answer is a resounding no. His power, while quite significant, is hemmed in by federalism, Parliament, his party, the Senate, the judiciary, a sprawling federal bureaucracy, and ultimately the voters. When you think about all these layers, all these people with their causes and grudges and machinations, the wonder is not that everything takes so long to happen, but rather that anything gets done at all. In a democracy, no leader operates in isolation. Trudeau's role is shaped as much by the history, the institutions, the people around him, than by his vision of Canada. And perhaps that's the point. A system designed not for the whims of one, but for the collective good of many. Like and comment. Let me know a topic you are curious about, and subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden connections that shape our country. Thanks for watching.